Hello and welcome into another episode of the Calcio Connection podcast, connecting with you Italian football fans from all over the world. This is the Derby d'Italia wrap-up episode, and our good sport friend Daniel Lucci, the Juventino, is on with us, as is a very happy Interista, Nick Costa. I'm, of course, very happy, and then Jerry is just going to be the neutral sniping at us in this episode. And I'm going to introduce Daniel first. And I know he's going to be a good sport. We were all just talking off the air. We planned this panel, to do this episode wrap up a few days ago. So we knew that unless the game was going to be a draw, we knew that there would be at least one unhappy person on here, if not two unhappy people. So, Daniel, it's been a few hours at the time that we taped this. How you holding up, man?
It could have been better. That's for sure. Goes without saying, but it's tough to expect a team to put up a good fight or a victory when 9 out of the 11 don't show up to play. So, we'll touch on that a little more, but yeah.
Yeah, let me and Daniel, by the way, you can check out his work at World Football Index. And aren't you writing now for a new site as well? I saw you post a story the other day from a new site.
Yeah, I did a little guest writer for a Vecchia Signora blog. Follow me, and they have some good work there as well. And just a couple articles for myself and a couple other guys. So take a look there too.
Nice. And Nick Costa is also with us. Pretty glorious background, pretty glorious jersey. You know him from the Brotherly Puck podcast, and he's joined us here on Calcio Connection before. So again, just to remind people, this is our Derby d'Italia review. Inter finally beat Juventus for the first time since late 2016. So this felt like a long time coming, and I know Nick wanted to rejoice with us. How you doing, man?
Very good. A pleasant good evening to you and all my fellow Interisti.
Yeah, we weren't sure if this was going to be a happy one for us or not. It finally worked out. And Jerry Mancini, and Jerry is also happy because back on Friday, Lazio got the tremendous derby victory over Roma. So Jerry's also in a good mood. And I know Jerry watched Inter Juventus today. How you doing, Jerry?
Good. Roma sucks. Juve sucks. And that's it. That's all I have to say. They both fucking stink. Like they both looked. Both derbies were comparable, where one side were dominant and the other side was just complete utter shit. I would say that Roma were miles ahead of shitness compared to Juve, but that's just my thoughts. They just looked utterly disappointing for most of the game, where Juve, it only took a matter of time before their shitness crawled in. So, but we'll talk about it. But Ronaldo, fucking guy's a dud today. Eh? What a fucking stinker he is. Talk about freaking everyone polarizes and kills Messi and how Messi doesn't step up. Well, let me tell you something. Ronaldo hasn't been stepping up that often this season either. So, he's got 14 goals this year, but I think that he hasn't scored in the big games. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't recall personally. So, but a lot of factors into that, but it happens.
So I love that. I want to give a few of my thoughts from an Inter perspective that I have a couple questions I want to ask Daniel. And then, of course, I want Nick to weigh in as well. So, you guys, it's funny because we didn't do on this show a whole lot of preview for this derby matchup, because I felt like all of us did it on a lot of other shows. And we have a lot of other good friends, of course, who work in the Calcio community. Like Daniel and I actually were both on with our friend Anthony Privatera on Inter Worldwide a few days ago to preview the matchup. And we've all been, Jerry's been writing things. We've been on other shows. So we didn't really do, I think, the preview enough justice. But if you did happen to catch me on any of the other shows where I talked about this Derby d'Italia, you know that obviously supporting Inter and watching the roller coaster that it's been this season, I was really nervous heading into this game. I mean, how could I not be coming off, a performance against Roma last week? So months of dominance, not clinical enough. And then with a 2-1 lead late in the game, the mentality changed. Conte's substitute sent a clear message that, that he was just going to try and defend and hold on to the lead for dear life, and that usually backfires. So after really this entire season, up until this Juventus matchup, you hadn't seen Inter sustain anything for 90 minutes. Like, they all over the road. There have been games against weaker opponents like Torino and Crotone where they've had poor first halves and then played well in the second half. And I knew that there was no way to beat Juventus if you weren't on the ball for 90 minutes, that was not a possibility. Pre-match, the internet was imploding because if you caught some of the warm-up footage, you saw, for those watching on YouTube, you can see the man behind me here in this photo, Arturo Vidal, when he was embracing Chiellini before the match, and he kissed the Juventus badge. And so, of course, that became a meme and a video, and I got in on some of the fun calling the guy a Juventus double agent, and people are freaking out. And Arturo Vidal, overall this year, has been a huge liability for Inter. Like, he's been really, really poor, but he actually stepped up against Juventus and had an excellent, excellent match. He scored the opening goal, perfect header off a cross from Barella, who was brilliant in this match. So I was very happy to see Arturo Vidal play well. Barella was no question the man of the match. I mean, we saw some, great moments from other players like Hakimi and like Vidal. I thought Brozovic was also really good in the midfield. Lukaku made some things happen. Lautaro missed some sitters, so he wasn't very good today. But no question in my mind, Barella was the man of the match. I thought that from an Inter perspective, really where this match was won was in the midfield. They hadn't put together, too many consistent performances this season. There have been certain games where you thought, okay, Inter's midfield is getting bossed a little bit. The midfield was elite today. They were battling. They were winning back balls. They were winning, all the 50-50s with Juve, winning a lot of headers, winning back possession. I'll also throw a shout out to a guy in the defense who had a brilliant match, and that was Alessandro Bastoni, especially the ball that he played to Barella for the second goal was highlight reel material. I mean, that was and a perfect finish, right? A beautiful long ball from Bastoni, threaded the needle, Barella with the finish. When I was watching that goal in live time, when Barella was on the receiving end of that pass, for the first instant, I thought that was Lautaro receiving the pass. And so my thought was, he's going to put this over the crossbar because that he could not finish anything in this game. I thought, Lautaro is going to fuck this up. But since it was Barella, he ended up putting it in the top corner and scoring that goal. And then even, over the last 15, 20 moments of the match when Inter were forced to do a lot of defending. I mean, the Barella goal was at the 52nd minute. So Inter were holding on to that 2-0 lead for 43 minutes if you include stoppage time. And there was never too much threat from Juventus. And we'll get to the Juve side of it from Daniel here in a second. I thought from the Inter perspective, the shape was great. The wingbacks came back. Darmian came in for Ashley Young in the second half, and I thought Darmian won some good balls and did a nice job. They were basically defending with 5 at the back, but still countering and looking dangerous. So I was pretty happy with the way that they were cynical and were able to kill off the game. I will admit that when they went to halftime with Inter up 1-0, I was shitting my pants because it should have been about 2 or 3-0, to be quite honest, because Lautaro Martinez missed. The first chance that he missed was really a sitter that he put wide. The second chance was a nice chance, not quite as blatant of a miss, but you could argue that Lautaro really should have had 2 goals at the half, and with the way Inter were on the front foot, I'm happy Vidal scored, but it should have been 2 or 3-0 instead of 1-0. So, of course, as it goes with Inter, I'm thinking a 1-0 lead. You had chances you should have put away. I thought it was only a matter of time before Juve got an equalizer and got back into the game. So that's why that goal from Barella was so important. And I honestly thought that tactically that was Conte's best job at Inter last 2 seasons. And I thought that in the case of Pirlo, Pirlo had his lines too high, was really playing into what Inter like to do, and that's counter, move fast on the break. And so I thought that from Pirlo's standpoint, there wasn't nearly enough adjustment, and he played into what Conte likes to do. And as a result of that, you felt like you were watching a vintage Antonio Conte coach team, right? You could think what he did at Juve 7-8 years ago, some of the greater matches he had at Chelsea, the Italian national team. That's really the tactical performance that I thought we've not seen much from Conte, especially not this season, maybe a couple of those last year. So those are some of my thoughts from an Inter perspective. from the match. But I want to get into what Daniel Lucci saw, because of course he's watching it with a different set of eyes. Like I'm watching it, and Nick is watching it with the lens of what is Inter doing well, and I know Daniel was really absorbing what Juve wasn't doing well. So let me ask you first, Lucci, did you feel like the performance from Juventus, was that more tactics or was it more mentality from the team?
I think it was more mentality from the team, if I'm being honest. I know Pirlo, we definitely didn't get everything right. That goes without saying. But I think just from the kickoff, in the first 10, 15 minutes, you could tell they weren't fighting for balls. They weren't winning balls. They weren't, attack. I swear we did not have a good attack like you mentioned, in the Inter back line till like the 82nd minute. It's the only I think it was the 82nd minute or something like that. Whenever Chiesa had his attempt on goal, which Handanovic made a good save. It's the only attempt I could remember from this match. The midfield was just, I don't know if they didn't feel like playing today. They were scared to go up against the Inter midfield. They were getting bossed and just looked uninterested the whole game. I know lots of Juventino were blaming Chiellini and Bonucci for the goals today, and I think that's complete stupidity, if I'm being completely honest. That Chiellini for the most part kept Lukaku in check. Yes, he did have a good couple chances, but he made him he forced him to make tough attempts, tough shots on net, or fight him for every ball, which you like to see. But it comes down to the midfield. On the Vidal goal, it was a 2-on-1. There was two Inter guys versus the one Danilo defender. Of course, he's going to get out. He's not going to win the ball against two Inter guys. And the second goal was just a great pass from Bastone, and again the high line kind of ruined that. And no one's going to catch Barella when he's coming down on a semi break.
So one thing I wanted to ask you, and I know that when you and I were on with Anthony for the preview show a few days ago on Inter Worldwide, we had brought up a couple of the key individual matchups, and I saw the wings being really important for both teams. Like I was certainly, from an Inter standpoint, I was a little bit worried about Ashley Young going up against Chiesa defensively. And then I had a feeling, as a lot of people did, that a key matchup on the other side would be Hakimi going up against Frabotta, and that was a situation where Juventus were really shorthanded at fullback in that game. I mean, Sandro not available, Cuadrado not available, and Frabotta is very, very young, hasn't started many matches, so to have to go up against a guy like Hakimi is not easy. So and Frabotta ended up getting subbed off in the second half. How did you feel about his performance defensively, and how did you feel about Chiesa tonight?
Well, for Brotta, you kind of expected him not to be able to do much. Most of his time was going to be defending against Hakimi. I do think it definitely wasn't one of his better matches, but I also give a little blame to Ramsey. And I know this is because Pirlo wants him to play a little higher to support the attackers, but he left for Brotta, hung out to dry against Hakimi. And then when Barella went over to support Hakimi, it's 2-on-1. And what's Frabotta going to do by himself? Especially when Chiellini's already man-marking Lukaku. Chiesa, I thought was, he was somewhat lively like he usually is, but then again, he hardly had the ball at his feet. And every time it would be a 1-2 with Rabiot, somebody would commit a clumsy foul or lose the ball. They weren't fighting, they weren't hanging on to the ball. They weren't fighting for the ball like they should have been in a big match like this. Ramsey and Bentancur, like I mentioned, the midfield was just not very good. And Chiesa wasn't you expected more from him. It wasn't his best game, but then again, you could say that for the whole team. So
I know Nick has been chomping at the bit. So I want to get your thoughts, Nick, on who really stood out to you and what you thought of Conte's tactical performance. So you can start with the players on the pitch, and then your thought on the way the game was coached.
I'm going to echo what you said. Barella was definitely the man of the match. I feel like Vidal finally played the game we were all hoping he'd play as Inter fans, because he's been absolute dog shit up until today. Brozovic, I think, had his best game in 2 years. I feel like Brozovic lately, if things aren't going his way, his posture's bad. He's always making faces, and his just attitude's poor. I felt like Juventus had no answer for Barella, Vidal, and why am I blanking? Vidal, Barella, and the other midfield. Why am I
Hakimi?
blanking? Who? The
Hakimi?
midfielders. Brozovic. Jeez, I said his
Brozovic.
name.
I'm sorry.
My God. Sorry. So
and you just said it 30 seconds ago too.
Like I agree with Lucci. I don't think the tactics were poor. I think it was the mentality because a team that wants to play out the back like Inter, you want to press them and force an error deep in their own defensive zone. But the poise, the composure that the midfielders, but especially Brozovic, he had guys draped all over him the whole game, deep in his own end, and he just made beautiful passes all game long. Like he was lively, he was good at getting the ball back. I feel like the only player that had a poor game was Lautaro.
Yeah,
he's feast or famine this year, and it's mostly famine. Yeah. I thought the game would be a little more chippy. I thought we are going to get the usual, Chiesa has a season-ending injury flop, and then he's back running around in 10 minutes. We didn't get really much of that because he was invisible the whole game.
We didn't get the Vidal drama either. I mean, outside of him kissing the badge, he didn't, he didn't break anybody's skull or anything in the game.
Yeah, he kept his composure. I just feel like from the jump, Inter they had the mentality. That is the game Conte wants to play out the back, and it just everyone was in position, everyone was making perfect passes. They were lively. The hold-up play by Lukaku was brilliant again. Hakimi, he ate Frabotta alive. And Bastoni's the best young center back in the world right now, the way he's playing. That pass was incredible. The complete busted coverage by Bentancur trying to chase the highlight from behind. Everyone fell asleep down the middle of the field.
Mm-hmm.
And then he burns Chiellini and Frabotta for the second. So finally got to, my heart was still racing the entire final, 20 minutes because you never know with Juve and the referees and Serie ass. But just a fantastic game by Inter. Like, it makes you scratch your head. Like, where was that against Shakhtar in the Champions League?
Yeah.
When all they needed was one goal. But if that to me, that's your starting lineup going forward. If they can all replicate that or even replicate 80% of that performance, they're going to do some damage.
But just to add on to that, Nick, sorry, I know you use Shakhtar as an example, but Shakhtar was obviously has a lot more pace than Juve does, especially with their injuries, and they set up to play defensive, so they kind of clogged Inter, to make their short passes start from the back, whereas Juve, there was way too much space in the middle of the field between defense and midfield. Inter could make fucking 50 passes, and Bentancur and Rabiot would be over here, and then it's over there. Like they're chasing shadows, and at that point, their head's not in the game, and they're just running around with not knowing what to do.
That's true. They probably maybe Pirlo had some of those midfielders pressing a little too much because, like you said, every time that pass was made to the middle, like Inter would turn around and there'd be nobody on them, and they were off to the races. Where you're right, Shakhtar fucking parked the bus and celebrated a Europa League berth. Fuck them.
Well, so Nick, can I get you to give Conte some credit? Because I know that now we've had you on once before, and I think we all regret it because whatever the conversation was then a few weeks ago, it just got so busy that I didn't really give you a chance to tee off on Conte because you're one of Conte's loudest critics.
Yes.
But it's weird because I know like you've been chomping on the bit to get back on here and trash Conte. But like, how do you trash Conte after that? I think all you can say is, why can't Conte do this more often? Like, I think that may be the only criticism today. Like, how do you feel about his tactical acumen today?
A+. I mean, I'll give credit where credit's due. I really don't like him as a person. I still think he's a Juventino shitbird. But I like the lineup. I like that he kept Gagliardini out of the starting lineup. Because you see how poor he is, even the final 20 minutes. How much?
But it would have taken a useless Pepe Mancini to get this lineup wrong. I don't like. There's no way you can screw this up. He knows who his best players are, and he knows Pirlo is tactically inexperienced and has a couple injuries and whatever. So Conte would have had to kill somebody to ruin this one. Like,
Well, he's
I don't
ruined
know.
a few things over the last 18 months.
Fair enough.
But A+ today.
I mean,
That's the
he
perfect
could have
starting
thrown
lineup.
Kolarov on.
Oh my God, Kolarov. That's why I don't feel sorry for any team that gets hit with COVID, because Inter had to play Kolarov against Milan when Inter had the COVID bug to start the season, and he was directly responsible for both goals Milan had.
Yeah, and listen, I think both of you guys from both sides made really good points about the mentality, because I thought that everything Lucci said was very fair. That I was honestly shocked by just how little grinta Juventus played with in this game, and then on the other side of it, I was truly shocked at how just emotionally invested Inter looked, only because not only have we not seen a whole lot of it over the last couple of years, we haven't seen a whole lot of it against Juventus in a really long time, because both matchups Inter had with Juventus last season, they were played off the pitch. The first one was the 1-2 loss at San Siro, before the pandemic with a full stadium. Inter had no heart in that whatsoever. And then they played in the empty Allianz, right when right before the stoppage in Serie A. And there was really not much. I mean, they had, I think, a decent first half in that game, and then just really didn't show up mentally for the second half. So you don't see a whole lot of that passion against Juventus. So I was just shocked. I'm still a little bit in shock. Jerry, your thoughts watching this match, and you had a marathon of calcio today, because you were watching from the 6:30 a.m., Napoli destroying Fiorentina. You watched all the way through Inter Juventus. Were you surprised by not only Conte's tactics today, but also the grinta that Inter played with?
You guys said you have a player that you chose, Barella. My player of the game is the Inter team. My takeaway of who was shit was the Juventus team. That's how I look at this. And if I had to choose a player, I agree with Nick. But Barella was the best player on the field. He's been dominant the whole season. He's probably the best midfielder. I would be shocked if he didn't win MVP best midfielder in Serie A, like whatever you want to call it. If he did not win the award, that would be like Ciro Immobile getting stripped of the award last year when Dybala, for no fucking reason, should have won that award. But that's a whole different debate we can talk about another day, because I can be going on that for hours. But regardless, we talked about this off air. I like Chiesa. I'm a supporter of Chiesa. I think that he's showing his potential of who he really is. Now, when you got, I call him Culo, because that's just my nickname for Culo. But
is it because you don't want to try to say the full name?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I call him Culo. I don't know. Don't they play similar positions? Correct me wrong. They're both on the right side, which one benefits the other doesn't, because they're not always going to be playing the same. I just think that had the money been invested into a pure number one midfielder that this team still hasn't signed in how many years now? They still haven't fixed the problem of their midfield. They had a good back end before it started aging. They've always had a good front line, with Mandzukic to whoever else they've used. Morata, first time, second time now. Bringing in Ronaldo still when he wasn't peaking yet. Like, they've always had the right positions filled, but somehow this team successfully fucks up on signing a good, a great midfielder like Inter has, like Lazio has. Milan has a better midfield than fucking Juventus, in my opinion. I just think I take Kessié over the whole midfield fucking for Juventus. I'll tell you that right now. The guy can control a game, the amount of minutes he plays. He stepped up so many games this year with so many players missing him in the Milan midfield. I do like McKennie. He is the future of this team. He's someone you can build around, but he's not that great player yet that can make that difference, that can make the leap. Their midfield looked a disaster today. I don't know what they were trying to do. Bentancur, I loved that guy last year. I'll be the first to say that I thought that guy was the real deal for Juventus. I thought that he was going to be that creative midfielder where a lot of his passes last year, he looked really effective. I remember in the first game, Juventus versus Lazio, before he got hurt, he was dominating that midfield. He was really effective. As soon as he went out, Juventus struggled against Lazio. And that was kind of a big factor of why they won that game that night. Now, every time I watch Juventus, they look good in a game, and they look like shit the next game. And I don't know what they were trying to play today. A 3-5-2, a 4-4-2. I don't know what the fuck they're trying to do. They all played individually. Everyone was just trying to do their own thing. Like they were just running like lost puppies, where they just run in circles, chasing their tails, and they didn't make no sense. You got Ronaldo playing behind Morata. You had Chiesa on the right playing with no support. You said Fabrota getting hung out to dry. Ronaldo looked like a sack of shit. The guy looked like a sack of shit. And I've been saying this on so many shows now. I've been reading the book about him. And one of the things that the book tells me that I saw today is that when it doesn't go his way, he's a fucking sucky baby. Doesn't take accountability. And the one thing I don't like about him that hurts this team in so many games is his inability to track back and help the defense. He's such a fucking lazy player. I give him all the talent in the world that he can beat players one-on-one and he can hit the moves and everything. But his work ethic sometimes just, it makes me want to throw up. I swear to God, like it's brutal. But enough about Juventus. Inter. Conte, my man. You got to give Conte this guy love, man. Nick.
No.
You got to give this guy
Come on, Nick.
a gun, man, because how much shit he takes, and still Inter is at the top of the table. And
I mean, for today, Milan can go right back top.
Doesn't matter. I don't
Forza
care.
Cagliari. Forza Cagliari.
Forza Cagliari. Nangolan. We need goals.
Yeah, but just the fact that everyone's forgetting Champions League was never the goal. It was always the Scudetto. That's the goal. And I wrote. Actually, no. Screw you, man. Because
screw you.
I literally dedicated a piece to Conte, and if this team can actually win a Scudetto, and I said that they could. It's been what, a decade since they won something? Almost a decade.
Yeah.
2011.
2011.
So they did what they had to. I know people don't like Vidal. I know there's the bad side of Vidal. But look at the difference of having Vidal in a game like today against a bona fide team like Juventus. Well, they still are bona fide because they have won 9 Scudettos in a row. So you can't take that away from them. They're still the superior team that you have to beat. Vidal was a difference maker in that midfield, though.
Finally.
There've been good games from him this year. And I know that there's been a lot of times where he's made poor decisions. But having a guy like Vidal like today proves to be a difference maker. I know that you call them senior citizens players, and I know Kolarov was the worst signing. That one I can agree with you guys. But a guy like Vidal wasn't there last year that is there this year and can really make a difference. Had this team was able to have Stefano Sensi healthy for more than 2 games in a row, what kind of midfield you really would have? Bastoni. Look at the guy, what he's become under Conte. He was not like that before Conte came. I didn't even know who Bastoni was before Conte came.
Well, he was a kid. He was a kid before Conte came.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was, how he came on to Inter. And then all of a sudden, the last 2 years, this guy's flourishing. He's got one of the best long passes in the game, I have to say. Anybody who can hit a pass like that on a consistent basis is unbelievable, because that's not easy. So I like Inter's chances of winning a Scudetto more and more as the weeks go by. Coppa Italia is not going to be a worry to their season. If anything, I would try to invest and try to win that tournament, something that they can build off of for the future. That's any trophy is always more of morale to get your players boosted, to give them a reason to believe. That's how I look at it. But with today's performance, it kind of reminds me a little bit. I'm going to go back to Lazio, where The only thing with Inter that concerns me going forward is that they need to do this more consistently now. And
Yeah.
like I've seen Lazio this year play against Juventus and Inter and pull off great performances. And then I see them against a team like, I don't know, freaking Sampdoria. They shit the bed. So, and that's Inter, the same boat where they have the depth and the quality. I honestly thought they didn't have the depth after I watched that Sampdoria game, but you know what? This team has every reason to win the Scudetto and believe why they're favored. And anybody who can bet this team at a plus and it's not favored right now, I would be considering putting money on them because you'll get some good value on that, man. I don't know who's still favored. Juventus to win the Scudetto?
No, Inter are actually favored. I mean, it's in the plus
Okay.
money. Everyone's in the plus, but even before the match, Inter were favored. So I'm sure they're still favored.
And then the last thing, Lautaro Martinez, if you guys can sell that guy for 60, 70 million, and that's a profit, you take it and you run. You
Should have sold him for 100 last year if
Yeah,
they could have. I don't think
you
they really
should've.
could have, but they should have.
He missed what, three chances today he should have
Yeah.
scored at least.
Yeah.
Guy fucking stinks. I'm sorry, man. He's so fucking frustrating. He stinks, and I'll tell you why he stinks, because he's so inconsistent.
Yeah.
Today he's a fucking Ferrari, tomorrow he's a fucking Honda. Like, holy shit, man. Like, it's so annoying to watch that guy. So annoying. Like, it just blows my mind how he can go on and off. And then the last thing, Lukaku. Guys, another player that Conte brought back to life and saved his career. Lukaku was a big part of their success today. How he was able to hold up the. I thought he was.
I thought he was really good. I thought it was pretty interesting watching him battle with Bonucci, because Bonucci was playing him very aggressively. But honestly, like, I thought without actually scoring, that was that was a really good performance from a striker, even without scoring. And he should have had an assist on at least one Lautaro goal. So Lautaro basically robbed him from the stat sheet. What did you think, Lucci?
I didn't think he was terrible, but I thought for the most part, Chiellini stuck with him as best as he could. What do you expect from a guy who hasn't started a game since a Serie A game since September?
Yeah.
But I know me and Jerry said this on Calcio Connection. I think it was the last time or the time before we picked our MVP of Inter, and I know you know who we said. So I'm just gonna let Barella.
Yeah, you guys said Barella.
Hands down the best player by a mile today.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lukaku was good. I've seen him play better though. I wasn't overly impressed. And then again, it's not we really put pressure on anyone else. Every ball went to him. There was at least some pressure on Lukaku, whereas everyone else, like we mentioned, had 3 days to make a decision who they're going to pass to. So yeah, whatever.
I just want to touch on one thing on Lukaku. He had 3 shots, 2 shots on target, 3 key passes, 1 aerial duel, 1. I'm just looking at his stats right now. He was rated almost 8 in this game.
Wow.
5 dribbles, successful. 1-3 fouls. These are key.
He had that one. Do you remember that turn that he had that was really impressive? I mean, that was the kind of thing where if that was Manchester United, Lukaku, he would have touched it right to an opposing midfielder. But he had some sweet moves today. I
think that Lukaku, we're so accustomed to him scoring goals that sometimes we forget what else he can do, and he makes players around him better. He gives Lautaro Martinez those opportunities to score where he drifts off 2 guys towards him and 1 guy less to him, and it opens up space. And the last thing is Chiellini. I just don't think he's no longer the defender he was.
I actually thought he was pretty good today.
I didn't think he was bad either, Alex. To be honest.
I thought he was fine.
I thought he struggled at times to defend Lukaku. Maybe
I agreed because Lukaku's big and he's fast. So of course that's no easy task for anyone. But then again, none of the goals were Chiellini's fault.
That's true.
He made the simple passes out from defense. He won a couple fouls from Lukaku on him. What more do you want from him? It was the overall team who didn't show up. You can't blame him for not. You want him to score too.
Who do you blame on that first goal? Bonucci or Danilo?
Well, see, neither of them, because Danilo was outnumbered. It was Lautaro and Vidal at the back post, and Danilo was by himself. He can't cover two guys, unfortunately. I think from what I was reading and what I saw, that was supposed to be Chiesa tracking back, or Bentancur, or I'm sorry, not Bentancur, Rabiot, one of them, because since they're both playing on the right side of midfield, they should be tracking back, covering that midfielder. So that if you had one of them there, it's 2-on-2. You have a better chance of clearing that. But yeah, I didn't think Bonucci and Chiellini were terrible today. Did they get burned a few times? Yes, of course. But for the you can't blame them for the loss. And I know some people were blaming them and saying, they're ancient and this, and I get it. But when you have, 3/4 of your back line out, there's only so many things you can do.
So I want two more things before we wrap up this episode. I want to get Nick's thought on something big picture with Inter, and then I do want to give Jerry an opportunity to flex a little bit, because Lazio had an unbelievable Rome derby performance on Friday. But one of the big underlying themes for Inter this week, and to be honest, one of the reasons why I had trouble getting properly hyped for this game, Inter Juventus, is so many off the pitch rumors and reports this past week with Inter. Everything from, people claiming that, Suning, who own Inter, are completely broke. They're financially insolvent. Look, they haven't paid an installment yet for Hakimi, which is true, but it's also true that they've had an agreement with Real Madrid since the summer to defer the first payment to March. So I'm not panicking about that. Stuff about the salaries to players being late, and then you have all these reports about the club being sold. There's obviously a lot of truth to those rumors. We're just not sure yet if they're trying to sell the majority stake or a minority stake to this company, BC Partners, very seemingly, I hope, very wealthy company based in the UK. If they do end up taking controlling stake, I hope they treat the club with the respect that I believe it's deserved. But, with all this stuff happening off the pitch, and then you have to wonder, is a sale imminent? Is it a full sale? Is it a partial sale, majority, minority? Quite frankly, I had a hard time really focusing on this match before it began, and I know a lot of other Interisti were in that same boat. So, Nick, this is kind of a loaded question as far as your thoughts on the situation, but what's your take on Suning? Because personally, I over the past 4 years, they've done a lot of great things for the club, but as of today, if they're being restricted by their own government, as to the way it's being reported that China is not allowing them to invest, money abroad right now, and if that freeze ends up, going on for an indeterminate amount of time, and if they're really, struggling with their retail revenues right now in China, like if they're having even 60% of the problems that people are saying they're having, then I think selling is probably the right move. And I'll thank them for the past 4 years, but I have a hard time seeing them being a viable company to continue. What do you think, Nick?
I'm sure Mr. Zhang has already made some money on his investment from the day he bought it, so I'm sure he'll be able to flip it for a plus. If I was him, I'd move to Italy and never go back to that shit country with a communist dictatorship. Some of those rumors are generated by like fan pages and fan sites from Spain and all these other. I feel like every year it's Twitter and all these websites that generate bullshit, whether it's against Inter, Juve, Manchester City, whoever. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. If that's the case with Hakimi, then I saw it was like a Real Madrid fan site that's trying to like stir the pot. It's like, well, fuck off. Like if that's already an agreement, then you're just trying to fucking create trouble. Worry about your own shit team that's on decline. If they do sell the team, if Mr. Zhang sells the team, I hope these investors, whoever buys it, I hope they care, and I hope they continue to dump money into the team, because Suning has, right? They signed Conte, and Conte has failed to deliver anything so far, but they're still buying players when he asks, and I don't buy into the bullshit. I feel like especially every January and every summer, there's just rumor after rumor after rumor when markets are open, the transfer markets. I just don't buy any of it.
Yeah, no.
I just if it happens, just I hope whoever buys Inter cares. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah, and like I hate the fact that
it's all
you think so, Jerry?
It's all bullshit. All these reports. Here's an example: Inzaghi. Inzaghi's gonna leave. Inzaghi's gonna leave.
Yeah.
He's going to Juventus. He's going to Juventus. How many times have you guys heard he's going to Juventus?
Oh, like a
I
month
don't know
ago,
why
he
you want
was
to go to
coming
that
to
shit
Inter.
team.
You remember that?
Yeah, Inter was Inter was the last one. That's right.
A month
Guess
ago,
what
yeah.
I read today? I've heard that he's almost close to an agreement until 2024, and he's going to be making 2.8 million per season now. That's a big pay increase for him. And I'll say I don't buy what people say, because why would a guy like Inzaghi want to leave Lazio? That's all he knows.
Because
Because he
Lazio's a
wants to
small
win
club.
something for once.
Well, here's the thing.
We both just dunked.
No, you're right, but
Hey, he got his plane. Like if I were him, I'd say I got my plane. I'm happy.
well, you got to think like this: when you're a guy who's got ties with a club all your life, and you don't know anything better, it's all about winning. It's about what you're loyal to, and loyalty is not what you see anymore. And
Look where loyalty got Belotti in 18th place.
yeah, and guess what? Loyalty got Inzaghi, 2 Supercoppa Italianas and a Coppa Italia and a Champions League berth, and look what he's growing there. And I think he's the only guy who can actually get money from Lotito and can actually understand Lotito and have a working relationship. Anybody else who comes into Lazio will probably wouldn't even stand a day with that guy. So and if Inzaghi wasn't so sold to the project of what the future is, I think he would have said, fuck you, I'm out. So there's something there that Lotito is starting to open up his pocket slowly. And it's not just Lotito that's cheap. It's the fact that the club doesn't make anywhere the same revenue and all that money.
And everybody's cheap right now. I mean, to be fair, it's like nobody's really spending money right now.
It's not fair to him that in the last third, when he took the team that was like in $400 million debt or something like that, was ridiculous amount of money that they were owned by like investors, like banks or something. Like I wrote up a while.
He spent 20 million on that shit player Muriqi during a pandemic. That's something, man. 20 million on that guy during a pandemic.
Well,
he's spending.
But I'm going off topic here. But yeah, I agree with Nick, man. Don't buy these fucking. Even Football Italia. I know Football Italia is just reporting what other people say. But even when you're reporting what other sites are saying, you got to be careful, because you got to know where the sources are from. How credible is it? Is it reliable? A lot of Football Italia is just clickbait. So when you see them, Inter is going to sell Suning this and that. I don't buy that Suning needs money and all that personally. How long has he been there for? 3-4 years now?
About 4 years, yeah.
And how's the club been? I don't see any issues since he's taken over.
The thing was, like, they were the two things that are a little bit problematic. One is, unfortunately, the clubs that were investing the most right before the pandemic were then the clubs who were losing the most during the pandemic because of how much money you just put out there, and then the revenue losses really hurt them. So that's legit. They're not the only club going through that. But the other thing is, and Nick touched on it a little bit, is that there, and I'm so far from an expert on Chinese politics, so I'm only going by what I read. But I keep hearing about these because like the government structure in China, we all know it's communist. It's like a hybrid communist structure. So if you're a business from China, you are still under the arm of the government, and the government apparently has told Chinese businesses right now they cannot be investing into overseas businesses like Inter, which Suning owned, but it's an overseas product. So there's basically an investment freeze that comes over their head from the government, and there's nothing they can do about it. So that's supposedly the situation they're in. Again, this is what I read. I'm not an expert on this, but they are basically forbidden by the government right now from investing new capital into Inter. And that may be why they would want to cash out right now, is because, hey, if we can't even invest in this right now, we might as well cash out and enjoy the revenue.
Mm-hmm. Twitter is such a cesspool, too. You know what I mean? There's always bullshit out there.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
Well, Jerry, I wanted to do, but before we wrap up this episode, I wanted to give you a chance to flex wrap up of Lazio Roma. It was a masterclass by your guys. Alberto with 2 goals, Ciro Immobile opened the scoring. A dominant victory at the Olimpico. What were your big takeaways from that win?
Well, I thought I would just flex on the Inter game, but sure, why not?
Hey man, listen, I wanted to give you the stage because people want to hear you react to that.
Fucking Ciro Immobile. Well, guys, that's all I'm gonna say, man. The guy is fucking unstoppable, on fire. I'll keep on tweeting that out. I don't give I hope he does show up for Italy in the Euros and just starts to prove to people that he's no longer just the Serie A player, but he's also the international player, which I think he could be. The formation is always going to be an issue, and I hope that he can somehow adapt to a 4-3-3 and just figure it out. It's hard when you don't play that kind of system every day. You don't adapt to it and adjust to it. When you're so used to playing a certain style, it's kind of hard to be like versatile, especially as a striker. But in regards to Lazio's performance, did you see their third goal? 22 consecutive passes and 11 players touched the ball in a row. Like, that is insane, man. I saw the video. Miraculous. It's just like Inter, I was saying. I haven't seen Lazio play a dominant first minute to last minute. And I think it has a lot to do with, like, some of the comments that ex-players were saying. Like, Fabio Capello was saying that this is a small team that wasn't going to prepare well. And there was another guy who said playing Lazio on Friday is going to be like a practice game. I forgot who it was, but when you say stuff like that, and especially in a derby, you're giving a team such as Lazio ammo to be very pumped up. And then Felipe Caicedo actually tweeted out on Twitter, "Oh, who's the small club now?" Or we just finished practice. Like he basically cemented it and just like gave him a nice cheap shot. And all the players were just commenting on all these dumb lines that they were coming out with. And I think that has a lot to do as to why Lazio was so fired up for this game. This is the type of team that if you give them a reason to believe, they will believe and they will go out and prove a lot of people wrong that they can be the best team in the world. Now, I wish that Lazio played like that on an every week basis, because when I see what Lazio can produce like they did on Friday, I always know that they have the best starting 11 in Serie A. I truly thought they had a better starting 11 maybe last year with the form they were showing. But when you got a guy like Immobile up top, you got wing backs such as Maricic, who's proving he can be an inverted winger. And then you have Lazzari on the right, Sena Lulic, who's back, and when he's in form, he's a serviceable left wing back. In the back end, you have Acerbi, Stefan Radu, who had a great game against Roma and still showing that he still has some legs left in him. Luis Felipe, when he's healthy, he can be a very solid defender in the back. And then one of the best midfields of Savage, Luis Alberto, along with I say Lucas Leiva is on the decline. I thought last year he was really good. This year, I do agree that Lucas Leiva is no longer the player he once was. It could be COVID, it could be injuries too, but again, when you start getting older, it doesn't help you either. I think he's 34 now, so I think Gonzalo Escalante should be given more minutes. He's looked really good in his role, but an overall great performance. Roma looked like shit. Like, not one player on that team looked good. Their first shot didn't come until the 85th minute. And when Pepe Reina made the save, he made the save, and the reaction was great because it looked like he had just won a World Cup. And that's just how much it meant. So, tactically, again, it drives me nuts when you see Inzaghi can get it right on a night where he rotated his players. He showed trust in taking off Immobile and with 10 minutes left and put Vedat Mariki in. That just should tell you how confident he felt in the victory. Like, these are the small things I want to see more often with Inzaghi. If he can figure out that squad rotation, that's what hinders his ability to win more games. He's too reliant on the Albertos and the Savages that you got a guy like Apro on the bench, bring him on. You got another guy like Pereira, bring him on. There's depth on this squad. I know we criticize Lotito being cheap, but they did some work in the summer. They brought players in, and Inzaghi was happy with it. I saw them come in this game, and they were a big difference maker. I think that Roma has overachieved. I don't think they're going to stay at the top. They're going to dip off in the second half of the season. Sorry, they haven't beaten a top 7 team all year. There's a reason why, because they're just not as good as the top 7. That's it. They're just not at that level. Yeah, they did what they had to beat the bottom teams, and that's what helps you to stay at the top. But to be within the top 4, you need to go up and beyond and try to win 2 of those games against the top teams, not draw or lose all 7. Like, it just hinders. But there's just so many issues with Roma that you're starting to. Even against Inter, I thought that they were very fortunate to tie them, and again, that second goal, in my opinion, was a foul, but that's debatable. But overall, Lazio just, and then in the last part at the end where the players lined up on the side on the pitch, holding arms together behind Inzaghi. So if you've seen the picture of it, there's Inzaghi. They call it Bande Inzaghi because the band is behind them, and he's leading the orchestra and everything, like on the front, and like it's actually very nice to see that how much this game meant for Inzaghi too, and it could be a turning point for their season of how they rallied for each other and how they played so hard. So the form is starting to come with Lazio. We're starting to see what the team that they were prior to the lockdown. So this is very encouraging. They got games against the Sassuolo next weekend and Atalanta afterwards in Serie A. So 2 big games against top 8 clubs. So if they really want to stay within that threshold and try to compete for a Champions League, they need to win the next 2 games.
Well, that'll do it for this episode. I love Jerry getting to flex a little bit. Certainly, thanks to Daniel Lucci for being a good sport. Because believe me, I know how tough it can be to talk about losses. So Daniel, I'll let you go first, man. If you have anything to plug, I know you've been writing a lot lately, and where can people find you on social media as well?
You can follow me on Twitter, Daniele Lucci. I tweet out all my articles, or you can look at Vecchia Signora blog or World Football Index. All my blogs are there. They're not all Juve either. So, I've been getting into some of the younger, Italian talent, discussing what they're all about. And final thoughts are just hopefully Juve are smart. And like to add on to Jerry's point, they bring in Locatelli and hopefully maybe even DePaul in the summer, and we can adjust that midfield. Huge. So, yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was unfortunately a tough day, but we go until Wednesday and we got Napoli. So we'll see how that one goes.
Well, fortunately for Nick and I, not such a tough day. Nick, let the people know where they can find you, man.
First, I just want to give a quick shout out to my dad's hometown team, Pro Vercelli. They won today, Forza Pro.
Nice.
They're still in the playoff spot in Serie C. And you can find me at Forza Inter 215 on Twitter.
Love it. Jerry, what about you? You pump out like 17 stories a day. What have you been working on? And I love your Conte piece, by the way. I highly recommend it.
Thanks. I'm just writing a piece on Lulic and basically what it means for Lazio that their captain has just returned to the lineup. And I plan on writing a piece on their latest victory and how it can be the turning point of their season and how can it really help them finish in a top 4 spot, basically. So, yeah, a lot of stuff I've been writing on, but I'm actually trying to focus more on reading this Ronaldo book that I've been trying to accomplish in the last 6 months that I keep on drifting off away because I keep on writing and podcasting with match previews I need to write this week to 3 takeaways I just did for the recent game. So always trying to keep myself busy, basically.
Well, after you're done with that, you got to read the Icardi book. I highly recommend it.
Is there one?
I've never. There is. He wrote his autobiography when he was like 23 years old.
Fuck that, man.
What an egomaniac. What fucking ego. I'm going to write my autobiography at like 23 years old. Huge thanks, as always. And you can follow Jerry on Twitter at jmancini8. You can follow our show at CalcioConPod on Twitter. We always appreciate everyone who sends us nice shout outs and builds up our follower count. We love having you guys follow us, and we follow back on the CalcioConPod account. We follow back every person who follows us. So make sure you get us there. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you check out the audio podcast wherever you download your pods. And if you're listening to the audio podcast, make sure you check us out on YouTube as well. And you can Donno spelled Donno. We'll talk to you guys next time. I'm sure we'll have an episode or two coming up during the week for another episode of the Calcio Connection podcast. Ciao.